we're going to continue the series over here on the history of the Persian Jewish community. Another edition. I think we're actually on part number 4 over here, and very, very interesting. I recommend everyone to watch over the previous 3 parts that we have recorded already, as exploring maybe some of the rabbis we're going to try and speak about today, and more of the histories and the happenings of what actually went on in Iran, more towards the 19th, going into the 20th century. We're going to try today, and we spoke a lot in the previous class about what actually took place at various points of time, and we spoke about previous occasions. I want to just go back to speak about more towards the period, let's just say, of the 19th century over here. As we start off, we talked about that there were among regional differences in Persian Jews in different places, let's just say. I think the various different chroniclers that will actually come and visit Iran and document what actually went on in Iran at various points of time. For example, George Nathaniel Curzon, who was the first Marquis Curzon of Kettleston, also known as Lord Curzon, he would describe, let's say, regional differences in the situation of Persian Jews in the 19th century as follows. He said, in Esfahan, where they are said to be 3,700 and where they occupy relatively better status than anywhere else in Persia, elsewhere in Persia, they aren't allowed to wear a collar or a Persian headdress. They're not allowed to have shops in bazaar, to build walls in a house as high as Muslim neighbors, or to ride in the street. In Tehran and Kashan, they are found to be found in large numbers and enjoying, let's say, a good position. In Shiraz, they are badly off, let's just say, singly. And in Bushire, they are prosperous and free from persecution. Another, I think, European traveller will actually say in the year 1880, hatred harboured by the Gentiles of Kerman Shah towards the Jews is not as overdone as in central Persia. And then I think, as we mentioned before in the previous class, there was a Rabbi Y. Fischel said about the Jews of Isfahan as beaten from all sides by the Gentiles. You can see, unfortunately, that there was on various different angles of the anti-Semitism on different points in times, and these travellers, let's just say, would very much relate this over. So that's something that we have to point out. I think there was another one. They say that another European traveller reported degrading ritual to which Jews were subjected for public amusement. At every public festival, even at the royal salam salute before the king's face, the Jews are collected, and a number of them, unfortunately, were flung or in the tank, and the king and the mob may, let's say, be amused by seeing them crawl out, half drowned and covered with mud. This is what's stated over. Just reading this over here from Wikipedia. And let's just say there's the same kindly ceremony which was witnessed whenever a provincial governor holds high festival, and let's just say there are fireworks and Jews. That's actually stated over. This is what I think there was other times there was attacks on Jews were related to the association with foreigners. Apparently, I think there was once chronicled an event that actually took place in the year 1936. When Elias happened to have been a Jewish banker for the British residency in Bushehr, was attacked for doing its business in the bazaar. And I think anti-Jewish acts were sometimes linked to resentment of European powers. That's reported over. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community as we are exploring the history of the Persian Jewish community over here in this special edition over here. So if you're new here to the channel, welcome as we explore the history today, and very, very important as we are sharing this information. So we appreciate everyone watching, and as we share over various different informations of the history of the Jewish community over there. Okay, so we know that there's another thing. I think it was in January 1924, the Jewish Telegraph Agency reported that a mob of Muslims had attacked the Jewish population and injured 6 Jewish people, but were prevented from killing anyone by the intervention of the police. That's what's reported over here, friends. So we are going to explore some more within regards to I want to, so let's just talk about Jewish community relations. I think Iranian Jews were aware, let's say, of growing influence of European Jews in global affairs, let's say, for example, and would turn to them for assurances. I think it was in 1840, if I'm not mistaken, the Jewish community of Hamadan sent an envoy, someone of the name, I believe his name was Nissim Bar Siloma, to meet Western Jewry. He would go to England and meet famous Moses Montefiore, who provided, let's say, certificates against accusations of the Jews. I think it was from 1860 and onwards, if I'm not mistaken. Many attempts at that point in time would be attempted to be made, if I'm not mistaken, to, yeah, we're just gonna find out over here. There'll be attempts and were made by Persian Jewish communities to secure assistance from European Jews against Muslims. These requests were full of descriptions of poverty and, let's say, persecutions faced by Jews in Persia. And yeah, very, very much, there's actually documents of various different requests over here. That's something that we very much have to point out. And anyone tuning in live, we're exploring the Iranian Jewish community history. So welcome to our community, welcome to our channel if you are new. And yeah, don't forget also to subscribe, please, and join our community. We're trying to get to 9,000 subscribers, and we've got fantastic content. So please click the subscribe button. So there was representatives of the famous Alliance Israelite Universal, which we've spoken about on various occasions before. They would record numerous instances of persecution and, let's say, debasement of Persian Jews. In many of these cases, let's say, envoys of foreign governments such as British, French, and Ottoman would intervene on behalf of the Jews to avoid, let's say, more serious repercussions. There was 3 Jewish organizations: Alliance Israeli Universal, Anglo-Jewish Association, and the Board of Deputies of the British Jews would get involved. And there was 2 key people we mentioned about before: Adolphe Crémieux, who we've mentioned about before, who was a French Jewish lawyer and a politician who would serve as Minister of Justice under the Second Republic and the Government of National Defense, if I'm not mistaken. There was also Sir Moses Montefiore. They were very instrumental, let's just say, in securing equal rights for the Persian Jews and protecting in anti-Semitic incidents. I think there was growing influence in the United States in international affairs. There was many American Jewish organizations at that point in time, such as American Jewish Joint Distribution Fund would be intervene on Persian Jews. And there was great famine of Persia, I think 1917 to 1919 at that point in time, which was spoken about. 1921, there was the United States to appoint someone named Joseph Saul Kornfeld, a Jewish rabbi, I think he was a Reform rabbi actually, as the ambassador to Persia. This was, I think, the first time in the history of the United States in which, let's say, someone in a rabbinic position was appointed as an ambassador. He would intervene on behalf of the Persian Jewry on many occasions. I think one event, the Reza Shah ordered water to be cut off from the Jewish ghetto of Tehran, and Rabbi Kornfeld successfully convinced Shah to resolve the matter. And yeah, I think it was in 1950 there was representatives of from the World Ort, if I'm not mistaken, which was a Russian Jewish organization aimed at, let's say, advancement of Jewish education. Let's just say their first branch was in Damavand Street in Tehran. It was a women's division. Later, that's Sakir. I think by 1954, Ort students grew to about 700 students, if I'm not mistaken. And by 1969, the student numbers had increased to over 2,000. Ort continued its operation in Iran after the Islamic Revolution until it was, let's say, shut down and nationalized by the government in 1980. So we're going to progress with regards to, let's say, more of what went on at later stages in time. I wanted to go by region a little bit over here and speak about different communities there were in Iran. And we did speak about Tehran, the Jewish history over there. There's a lot to cover over here within regards to the series, and that's why we very much have already on part number 4 over here. We have to point out over here, so much actually occurs during various different points of time frames over here. So if anyone's new to the channel, welcome to our community. And yeah, we have to talk very much about what actually went on during these periods of time. So we talked about the famous chronicler. I think a group of they state over, I think there was a group of Persian refugees escaping persecution back from Mashhad, Qajar, Persia, were granted rights to settle in the Sikh Empire, and that was in the year 1839. Most of the Jewish families would settle in rural Pindi, also in the Babu Mohalla neighborhood, and Peshawar, if I'm not mistaken. In 1868, Jews were the most significant minority in Tehran, numbering 1,578. By 1884, this risen to 5,571. Come on, 1892, an Ottoman archival record would indicate that a group of 200 Iranian Jews tried to migrate to the land of Israel, and they will return to Iran. That was what's chronicled over here. I think in 1894, there was a representative of the Alliance Israelite Universelle, obviously the Jewish humanitarian education organization, would write from Tehran every time that a Cohen wished to immigrate from obscurity and win a reputation for piety, he preaches wars against the Jews. Very interesting over here. Friends, anyone tuning in live, we are a community here. We're exploring here on part number 4, the Jewish community history of Iran. So everyone, welcome, and please don't forget, if you haven't subscribed yet to the channel, please subscribe and join our community, and tell your friends also, as we are really, really growing and very, very exciting at the moment how much progress is actually being made over here. So let's explore some more within regards to this specific topic over here. As the Persian community, this is actually a part number 4 we have to stress out, which is very, very interesting. So we're trying to really go from strength to strength over here inside this series, where we explore various different countries of the world. I have to point out also, I believe this is around the 40th country that we're recording about over here in, just to be precise. So that's very, very exciting. Okay, so we talked about, I think in 1901, there was a famous riot that actually took place in Sheikh Ibrahim. The riot of Sheikh Ibrahim was sparked against the Jews of Tehran. There was an imam began preaching on the importance of eliminating alcohol for the sake of Islamic purity. This led to an assault against Jewish people for refusing to give up the wine they drank for Shabbat. And I think it was in the year 1910, there was rumors at that point in time that the Jews of Shiraz had, let's just say, murdered a Muslim girl. The Muslim plundered the whole Jewish quarter. The first to start looting were the soldiers sent by the local governor to defend the Jews against the enraged mob. 12 Jews who tried to defend their property, unfortunately, were killed, and many others were injured. There was representatives of the Alliance Israelite Universelle recorded numerous instances of persecutions and debasement of the Iranian Jews. I think it was in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, thousands of Iranian Jews immigrated to the territory of present-day Israel within the Ottoman Empire to escape such persecution. That's very, very interesting. That was so. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community. We're going to speak about the Pahlavi dynasty in due course over here, but I wanted to say some more words with regards to definitely about some famous rabbis over here, which we have to about. There's so many rabbis on our series who've actually, I believe, recorded over about maybe 40 or 50 Persian rabbis already. So that is very, very interesting. So to learn about the Jewish community history here of of Iran, is always a famous, let's say, special spot in of its own right, which we are going to explore today. So anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community over here, as we are exploring Jewish community history of Iran over here. So that's something very, very special. There was a list of huge amounts of rabbis. We spoke about a few rabbis in yesterday's class. Let's speak about a few other ones. There was Rav Amram Khamvi. He lived between 1838 and 1886. I think his Hilula is on the 8th of Sivan. Who was he? He was born, I think he came from rabbinic auspices. His father's name was Rav Raphael, if I'm not mistaken. So he was born in the year 1838 in Halav in Syria. He would learn under auspices of his father, who was a Talmid Chacham, was a Kabbalist, and also, I think, through Rav Shalom Kasaki, if I'm not mistaken, another famous rabbi. 1864, he'd get married to his wife, the daughter of another famous rabbi, Rabbi Shalom Shama. Now, I think this is a rabbi that we've spoken about here in this series on several occasions before. That's something I very much have to point out over here. And yeah, he was definitely, Rav Shama was definitely very famous in his day. So that's something I recommend everyone to look into. And yeah, he would actually, let's just say, I think would eventually go to Galut. He left Aleppo, for example, will end up going, I think, to various cities in various different countries. I think 1865 he would eventually end up in Jerusalem. There he would learn under the auspices of the famous Rabbi Rachmim Antebi. In Jerusalem, he would go to Turkey, I believe, and would actually meet the famous Rabbi Chaim Pelagi. So it's very, very well decorated and visited. And in 1870, he tfis be'izmi. Et Sifro Harishon. זה האח נפשנו. This is the name of the book. וביקר באוסטריה, Bulgaria, Macedonia, Romania, and I think in 1873 he will pass Italy even, and would live in Livorno, if I'm not mistaken, and then go embark on a journey 1876 to Thessaloniki. 1878 he will get to Gibraltar, and then Louvre, and then yeah, very much, very, very interesting. We're going to take a short yeah, we're just exploring a few highlights of some of the Persian Rabbanim over here. He was a traveler. He would go to various places and write a lot also, and something that we have to very much point out. Very, very famous rabbi over here. I think he wrote 65 writings, and 15 of them, if I'm not mistaken, were actually printed at the end. I think this was initially. ומנהגים השייכים לכל חג ומועד פרי עטו וביניהם. בית הבחירה לחג הפסח, בית השם לחג השבועות, בית השם לחודש אלול. Very, very interesting. So he would actually translate those books. And if we turn around our friends, we can take a short minute break over here. So just watch your space and we will be back in a minute. So please be patient and we'll see you very, very, very soon. Hi, Shalom, everyone. Thanks for being patient over here as we are exploring the history of the Persian Jewish community, part number 3. So, everyone, welcome to our community, whoever is here. So, we're going to speak about some more rabbis over here in the meantime, and we haven't spoken about yet. Another famous rabbi, Rav Yaakov HaRofeh, he lived between 1780 to 1851, the famous rabbi did. I think he actually came from a rabbinic auspice. His father was Rav Yosef HaRofeh, and he was born in 1780 in Iran. And very interesting. I think he would actually not just be connected to Iran, also to the city of Baghdad in Iraq, and would learn under famous Rabbi Nisim Tzalach Matzliach, if I'm not mistaken, Rabbi Moshe Chaim, and also Rav Reuven David Navai. I hope I spelled his name right. Kadal B'Torah B'Yira. I think in 1827 he was appointed a Dayan, a judge, and a posek in the city of Baghdad, very prominent position. Remember, that was a bastion Torah place. V'nit Manila Abedin, he'll be appointed the head of Jewish court. And his name was very, very famous from all around. He was a diligent learner in Torah and did huge amounts of, let's say, charity, chesed works. He was very humble and went after peace. תלמידים הרבה, ובראשם חכם Abdallah Somech. So he had a close connection with famous Rab Abdallah Somech, we've spoken before. ששב עמו בית דין יחד עם חכם אליהו עובדיה. He was also together with the famous Rabbi אליהו עובדיה. נודע כפייטן ובעל כל ערב. ושימש כ-20 שנה שליח ציבור בית כנסת החדש. He will be the cantor in the בית כנסת החדש. ונוח, his son was Rav Yosef HaRofeh. He was appointed also one of the great rabbis of Baghdad. Ubeno Chacham Mei HaRofeh Shimesh Shochet Bekal Kota. So he would become a Shochet kosher sort of. Bito Leah Nisa'al Reuven Menashe Zvaida. Bito Esther Nisa'al Chacham Moshe Chaim Shlomo David Shamash. So great rabbanim in the person of Rabbi Rashi Shel Baghdad. He happens to have been. שלושה מחיבוריו של החכם יעקב הרופא יוצא לאור בחייו. 3 of his books come out while he was alive. One of them was Shir Chadash, which was a perush on the Shir Hashem, the Songs of Songs. They'll come out in 1843. There was a book in Calcutta, if I'm not mistaken, Na'aveh Tehillah. This was various different drashot on the book of Tehillim, which would come out. Very interesting. I think in 1845 in Jerusalem, the Shemen HaTov, which she taught on the Mesachet of Beitzah, and that came out in Taf Reish Tet in 1849 in Kushta. I think in 1851 a plague broke out at that point in time in Baghdad. And so I think there was possibly, so as before there was, because of this plague, there was possibly casualties. I have to double check on that. And so that's when, so he, if I'm not mistaken, was passed away on the 5th of Tishrei, Tafresh Yud Bet. That was in between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And something that we have to point out over there. I think he would become an author in various different books also afterwards, or his works were printed afterwards. That's something that I have to point out. 1851, that happened to have been over here. Now we're going to speak about Rabbi Menachem Shmuel Halevi, just for a minute, who was another famous rabbi. And let's say a word with regards to him. He's a key figure. He actually passed away on the 19th of Shvat and came from rabbinic auspices. His father was Rav Shmuel Mordechai, if I'm not mistaken. He was born in Hamadan in Iran and would learn under great rabbis. His name was a Menachem Shmuel yeshiva over there. His father, Rav Shmuel Mordechai, I think would be heading it. I think in 1900, היה מתלמידיו הראשונים של בית ספר קוליס אל חברים שנפתח באותו שנה. I think the Alliance school system was opened that year, שבגר אותו כדי לימודו ישיבה. הוסמך להורות בבית ספר הממשלתי הגבוה בהמדן. So very, let's say, in his own right, exciting. הוא החל לעבוד כמורה לעברית וצרפתית. He would work as an Iranian and a French author for the Beit Sefer Kol Yisrael Chaver. That is Alliance network of schools. And very, very interesting. We're going to take another short break now, friends, over here. So thanks for being patient. As we make the break, if you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And we're back in a minute. Okay, thanks everyone for being patient over here as we're exploring the history of the Persian Jewish community. We happen to be speaking about famous Rabbi Menachem Shmuel Halevi, famous Persian rabbi. He became the rabbi of the city of Hamadan, and will be working within regards to preserving, let's just say, the Jewish Judaism over there in that specific place. He would form the Agudat Mo'orei Yishanim V'chovei Yishurun and Lechizuk HaTzudat Sinyot in Asfa Ivrit, if I'm not mistaken. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, he would actually make Aliyah to Eretz Israel. And there was Histadrut HaTzionut at that point in time. 1923, it would be the time period where he'll make Aliyah to Eretz Israel, we have to point out over there. I think it was part of the Sephardic committee in Jerusalem over there. And Chaveh Havad Artzi Shel Keren HaYisod, that was another prominent position. In 1924, he was appointed, I think, and Va'ada as a shofet, as a judge, in the Beit Mishpat HaShalom Ha'ivri, who nada gam kenoam darshan mukhshar. So he was known for his great qualities. V'shemesh shadar mata'am keren ha'yisod. Into all Mizrahi, so that's something that we have to point out. I think within the year 1931, Yasad et Ba'ad Yudi Pras. That's what he founded over there. But I think from Tafresh Tzadik Tet, that's 1939. Nasa Lishlichut Bahodu Sham Nifkash Ben Hete Im Atmei Nagdi or Gandhi Bigday Lishnea Letmoch Bamatarot Hitzionot Nisyazo Paga בבריאותו, ולאחר שחסר לחלה, במחלה בנפטר זמן קצר לאחר מכן. So the whole writing within regards to that. I believe he passed away actually on the 19th of Shvat in 1940. This famous rabbi did. That's something that we have to point out. And that was a video that we recorded about the history of the great Chacham. So hopefully we'll be able to state over more. So thank you very much to point out over here as we're exploring the Iranian Jewish community over here on this special edition over here. So very interesting. So let's explore a few more of the rabbis. Remember, there was a lot of rabbis at that point in time. So there's an Alliance website, Chacham Yomi. I recommend people to look at it as a resource. I think it's important that we resource to our next generation over here. Then another one that will make his, let's just say, mark during that time period, he becomes very famous, Rabbi Rachamim Melamed HaKohen. Who was he? He was born in 1865, and he passed away in the year 1932. So let's explore some highlights within regards to him. He actually passed away on the 4th of Shvat. Rabbi Rachamim Melamed Cohen did. So he passed away at that point in time, 1865 to 1732. Was interesting, his timeline. He would get married in 1988 to Marat Bibi Ma, if I'm not mistaken. Very interesting. Maybe she changed the name afterwards. She did. I'm not too sure. Bitot Rabbi Agai, או בנו קצב. קבע בילדותו החל לדרוש ברבים, ובשל כך זכה לכינוי מולה קוצית. So this was, I think, possibly something. היינו חכם קטן. ושם זה דבק בו כל ימי חייו. ודרושותיו היו כמעיין, המתגבה ושילוב בהן הלכות. אגדה, דינים, במוסר, מעשים ומשלים כך דברי נועם, ובבא אף הרעיף על שומעיו, הקיצמאים אהבה התורה, ויראת שמיים. I think in the year 1906, 40, עלה לארץ ישראל, והיה מייסדי שכונות בנחלת יצחק, נחלת ציון, בעיר הקודש ירושלים, בירושלים כיהן כרבה של העדה יהודי פרס, והקים את ישיבת שער רחמים. So very, very interesting of that. So I had to say that in Hebrew. He's another key rabbi at that point in time. I think Rav Rachamim Melamed HaKohen was a symbol, let's just say, of the mofet v'anavoto v'tzniut sheshimshu dugmei l'talmidav. Just as an example, that gentle person, it wasn't so easy for the person. I think it was on the 4th of Shvat in Tafresh Sadiq Bet. I think there was the Yeshiva Lamala will actually request from him and he'd pass away. I think he was buried in Har Zaytim, if I'm not mistaken. So that was something to point out. Let's explore a few there. See, he had the great book also, so that's something that's on a shir on itself, just to point out over here, in regards to famous Persian rabbis. Yes, I think that's the rabbinic structure for that time period we have to point out over here. Anyone tuning in live, welcome to our community as we're exploring the Iranian Jewish community. We are already on part number 4, which is absolutely amazing and really going from strength to strength. That's something that I very much have to point out over here. Yes, I think we covered the rabbis over here. So we want to know the history of the Shiraz, which is very interesting. Obviously, not just the history, also the Jewish history over there. So I think in its stage, the Shiraz had 20,000 strong Jewish community over there. So yeah, that's very, very interesting. The Syrian Jewish community was very, very well known at that point in time. Very points in time. That's something that we very much have to point out over here, friends. I think the Jewish quarter, if I'm not mistaken, in 1910, there was a pogrom of the Jewish quarter, and it was started, I think, by false rumors that had, let's say, Jews and ritually, made up a story that they ritually murdered a Muslim girl. And in the course of the riots, I think 12 Jews were mistreated. Very interesting enough. And don't forget about the 50% in of itself. And there was this pogrom over here where, unfortunately, because of a Muslim girl, which the rumors were not true, there was beating up, and it's a very, very scary. I think when the Pahlavi dynasty, they're Moroccan also, they came about, there was it become the center of attention gain, apparently. This burial places. Many inspectors will come, let's say, to landed Baroque position, and it's very interesting. So that's very interesting over there. Friends, we're exploring the Jewish community history of Iran over here, and much more can be said within regards to that. So friends, anyone you're tuning in live, welcome over here as we explore the history over here of Iran, the holy place. You could say holy place. It's holy place only when there's the Torah scholars over there. That's something I very much have to point out. Without Torah scholars, these places won't be as healthy whatsoever. So let's explore a bit more within regards to Jewish community history. We're going to speak more about the Pahlavi dynasty in the next video over there. So I think late 19th century, early 20th century, thousands of Iranian Jews immigrated to territory of present-day Israel with the Ottoman Empire to escape such persecution. That's something that we very much have to point out. So we're going to go further in the Jewish history in itself. And just going to explore a bit more with regards to Shiraz Jewish history. I think it's important over here. Obviously, it's, let's say, 1,000-year history. Significant, there was an economic hub in its state, a cultural one, and featured distinct Judeo-Persian culture with over 10 synagogues in its traditional, let's say, Mahal, Yahaduyan. Yahaduyan, the Jewish quarter. And there was periods, let's say, of prosperity over there. Unfortunately, there was 19th century pogroms, blood libels, especially in 1910, which have its effect. Also, so that's something that we very much have to point about over here, friends. Yes, we're just gathering some more notes over here. So we're exploring the history of the Jewish community of Shiraz and different parts of Iran over here. That's something that we have to very much point out of your friends and anyone tuning live, our community, and welcome for the first time if you guys are here. Apparently in 1746 there was only about 40 families in Mashhad, but that will grow at a huge rate at a later time, which is very, very interesting. So the Mashhadi Jews, it's a whole Megillah onto itself. And let's just say there's a story of survival and perseverance, where the Mizrahi website will actually bring it down. Also, that's something that we have to very much point out over here. Yeah. The whole thing, how the Jews will end up in Mashhad, that's something that we have to point out over here. There's different opinions how they would, and obviously it was dangerous, and they would have moved to the United States already, and then probably detouring to there. That's my assumption. And even before the revolution started, they wanted to build a place over there. Yeah, so very interesting. So they'll muck a bit on what people say in general. So that's another added point within regards to that. So then there was, we go back to Memorial Lane over here. Yeah, very, very interesting. Where I think there's an article, excellent article here on the Mizrahi website, which talks all about the Persian Jewish community. We have to point out over here. Now, friends, at the moment, as you can see, it's very, very late. We're going to continue this part series. Bezrat Hashem, hopefully in maybe tomorrow. Hopefully we're going to speak about more rabbis, more Persian Jewish community, and so on and so forth. So watch this space. Don't forget to subscribe, and thanks.